Pricing a rental unit. Money talks, and it can sometimes speak very loudly. There are many strategies used to price a rental unit. Most have nothing to do with the actual cost of operating the rental. This is important to consider. After all, if you purchased a rental unit and the market rental rate simply won't cover operating expenses, that is not the tenant's fault. A unit has only so much value on the open market, regardless of what it costs you to operate it. Market rates are the rental values that can be obtained for a new tenancy in the market at that time. It is a fluid value, subject to changes based on rental availability and demand, neighborhood and attributes of the rental, and economic factors. A landlord can determine market rates for their units by checking out advertisements for similar units in similar neighborhoods, checking on local vacancy rates, and determining what they have associated with their unit that is valuable, such as extra parking, proximity to public transportation, 5 appliances, a fenced yard, or some other attribute for your specific unit. Once you've determined the approximate market rates, you can then look at secondary pricing strategies to meet your goals. Let's look at 4 pricing strategies. Pricing for a long-term tenancy. Pricing for regular turnover. Pricing for maximum profit. And pricing to support a tenant. Pricing for long-term tenancy. Some landlords desire to have long-term tenants that remain in a unit for many years. This generally reduces the cost of unit turnover, reduces vacant unit maintenance costs, and can be easy for the landlord. In this case, the landlord would want to price the unit under the top market rates, which would generate significant interest in the unit, thus allowing the landlord to select the tenant they feel is most likely to remain for the long term. The downside to this strategy is that the rent increases for sitting tenants are generally small, and the gap between market rates and the current rent will grow over time. This means profit margins are likely to drop as the years go by. The landlord will need to weigh the return on investment versus the anticipated reduced workload to see if this type of pricing strategy is for them. Pricing for regular turnover. If the unit is in an area where turnover is high, such as student housing or a housing complex favored by transient workers, then the landlord will need to factor in the cost of turnover into the rents while still maintaining a competitive rental rate. This can sometimes be tricky, as you need to rent the unit and need to factor in painting every so often, damages, and the cost of lost rent due to vacancy. However, most rentals that cater to transient tenants will offer shorter leases in exchange for a higher rent. This can be a win for all parties. Pricing for maximum profit. Landlords that price really high to maximize their profit often earns them and other landlords by association a bad reputation. It's not wrong, it's just unpopular. If demand is high and the supply is low, a landlord can capitalize on increased rental rates. In Ontario, units that are rent control exempt can also increase rates every year above the guideline amount. A landlord should be wary of this type of pricing strategy. While it may make you money in the short term, developing a poor reputation can hurt you in the long run. Pricing to support a tenant, also known as private subsidy. This is where a landlord prices a unit below market rates to provide a hand up to a family member, a vulnerable member of society, or just because they can afford to do so. It's a noble action. Unfortunately, it often comes with negative consequences. Not only may a landlord lose money each month, but if the tenant does not pay, the chance of recovering those lost funds is unlikely. This is not intended to dissuade a landlord from providing private subsidy. Just ensure you do your due diligence and don't expect gratitude.